Thank you so much, Professor Sen, for your insightful talk. Indeed, we will also have our, one of the invited speakers, Ms. Banali Deka, who is the Deputy Commissioner for President. Madam, request you to please, take your seat on the dais, and I'll also request the organizing team members to come and please felicitate her. Madam, thank you so much for being with us. Despite your pressing commitments, as you would understand, we have a lot of dignitaries present today here in Kokrajar in this venue. And Madam is also the person responsible for taking care of all protocol. So, Madam, there is a small change in the lineup of these speakers because Madam has certain pressing engagements with regard to the dignitaries. So, I request Manali Madam, please come to the stage and deliver your talk. She will be speaking on good governance at grassroots level perspective. Madam.
Thank you so much, Professor Jyoti. Namaskar, Kurumbai, respected dignitaries present on the stage, and my dear students and all the esteemed audience sitting here. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Nayan Jyoti and the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present on some of the initiatives that we have been taking up. Generally, after listening to a lot of very nice views and visions, I sometimes feel very humble to talk about something from the grassroots because our initiatives are, right at the grassroots level. And after Sir's illuminating talk, this is sort of the other extreme. I'll speak of some of the innovations and interventions that have been taking place in two districts of Assam, Kokrajhar and Gwalpara, where I have served as the Deputy Commissioner. Next slide, please. So I start off straight with Gwalpara because I think time is limited, and I would also request Professor Nayan Jyoti to maybe 5 minutes before, because I tend to go on and on when it comes to the work that we've been doing. So Gwalpara is a district in the western part of Assam. It is one of the 112 aspirational districts of the country. District has major issues of topography and terrain, of access and reach due to the very difficult topography and terrain. There are undulating areas, there are forested areas, there are source created by the braided Brahmaputra. The district is incidentally prone. The district has one of the most heterogeneous population mixes of the state, of the country, varied in terms of language, religion, ethnicity, way of life, culture, which makes a one-size-fits-all approach completely impossible for a district like Gwalpara. District is backwards. It is lagging in most of the human development indices. About 90% agriculture based. District is disaster prone. It has also been an entry point for insurgents to come into Assam through Bangladesh. Next slide, please. So in this backdrop, what had happened is that this was selected as one of the 112 aspirational districts of the country, and we had Niti Aayog sitting on our heads. We had about 49 KPIs, and Niti Aayog would be every day कि ये क्यों नहीं हुआ भाई, वो क्यों नहीं हुआ भाई, ऑनरेबल सीएम सर, पीएम सर इसको रिव्यू कर रहे हैं. So we were really in a very bad state because resources were very limited, and the whole purpose of aspirational district program is to increase the impact of governmental spending rather than increase allocation per se. So we took a two-pronged approach, A, in terms of systemic interventions focusing on low-hanging fruits and on meticulous scheme implementation. And on the other hand, we have taken up certain big bang interventions and innovations which we designed, piloted, and thereafter we replicated in various parts of the district, and these are also being replicated in other parts of the state and in the country right now. Next slide, please. So in terms of impact of the key performance indicators of the aspirational district program, I think many of us are students here. In case you want to know more about the ADP, you could Google it, or you can go to something called the Champions of Change dashboard, championsofchange.in. So there you will get the KPIs. So in terms of KPIs, when I first joined the district in 2018 June, what I saw is that there was a very apathetic approach of people towards developmental goals. At the same time, we felt that there is a need for students to be engaged in the entire process of decision making, for students to have a more vocal role in society, for having students have a very holistic kind of an environment. But this was not possible because of lack of role models. If you look at the district, 90% of the district is rural. Many of these students are first generation or second generation students. The literacy rate of the district is only about 68%. So, with that in mind, to give a voice to the children and to have children spearhead the entire process as leaders of cultural and societal change, we took up something called Ocean Clubs. Ocean Clubs were launched in all the 1698 schools of the district in the Ocean month, that is September 2019, and the results and outcomes were phenomenal. Within a very short time, about 15,000 of these students became Ocean Club members. They all the Bal Sabhas and Bal Sansad, I think some of us from the older generation would be knowing about these children, child parliaments, Bal Sansads. So this is a system which has kind of gone out in a place like Assam. So these children activated all the Bal Sabhas and the Bal Sansads. They did outreach programs in all the 1068 villages of the district, and at the same time outreach programs on health, on nutrition, mothers' meats, and so on. Next slide, please. So this is a massive exercise of convergence. Why I would like to show you, what I would like to show you here is, something about what the government does. We have various departments. We have departments working on various schemes. So the beauty of a program like Ocean Clubs is that we try to de-siloize these various departmental schemes and roles. Every department was given a responsibility area. For example, the social forestry department has nurseries. We tag these nurseries to schools. So I would like to talk about a few key initiatives under the Ocean Club. So every time a girl child is born, the local NHM unit would inform the CRCC of the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, and the CRCC would then tell the headmasters of the schools that girl child is born, and the children would go to that household and do plantation of fruit bearing and valuable trees. We had these children work as Swachhata monitors. Also, the concept of mentorship was very inbuilt into this whole process because we tried to put it in such a way that any person, any officer, any senior person is some VIP, somebody from the world of art and culture, any person who could be a role model. We would try to have these people talk to the children in these Ocean Clubs. So this became a platform for mentorship and also for these young voices to be heard by policymakers. Next, please. So at the same time, we try to incentivize this whole system. The idea was that the best performing Ocean Club would get a visit to the Deputy Commissioner's office and a chance to interact with the Deputy Commissioner and other senior officers of the district. For example, for every third Wednesday of that month, the best performing Ocean Club was called to the DC's office and given a certificate of recognition and also felicitated on the social media. And if there was a visiting dignitary on the third Wednesday, we tried to give away the certificate by that visiting dignitary. Next slide, please. So some of the other activities by Ocean Clubs, in these areas, there is a system of getting together in the evening for evening adda. What we try to do is that through these clubs, we try to have the community take leadership of the reading and writing habits of these children. So of that community, we took the Rabha community as the pilot. We would take college-going children of that community, orient them, and we would have these children mentor the younger children, because generally it is seen in these communities there is still a lack of receptivity to outsiders, and at the same time the number of teachers from that community is limited. So these things coupled together created a very vicious cycle of dropout, as gaps in understanding of these children went on. It went on accumulating till the child finally dropped out of school. We have hanging libraries. We had we also use learning apps. We had support from Pyramid Foundation, from UNICEF. So we started using learning apps to actually measure. As it is said, what gets measured gets done. So this was the basic mantra for us under in Gwalpara, that we tried to measure the baseline and we tried to see what kind of an improvement we could achieve. Next slide, please. So, Mission Vidya Shakti, in fact, these are initiatives that have got the Prime Minister's Award in 2020, and Mission Vidya Shakti again has got Karma Shri, that is the CM's Award for Excellence in 2021. So, under Mission Vidya Shakti, what we try to do is that since our education levels of the women was very low in Gwalior, it was only about 63%, and our resources were limited. So, we took up one of the 8 different blocks of the district as a pilot, and this was Ronguli, which was a tribal block. The first step was to do a survey of the 23,000 households of the district. We obviously did not have too many resources. We tried to pool together the resources. We had the district adult education department, which was really not very active. We took the resources from the Zilla Parishads, the human resources from Zilla Parishad, from the DRDAs. We took resources from the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, and we pooled all these resources together. And we requested the head teachers of the students to these schools to do a survey. They immediately took ownership, and they could identify 6,895 number of women. Then again from the community, we took students. The minimum qualification was higher secondary pass. We took students, we oriented them on basic teaching methods, and within a period of about 4 months, the initiative was launched by the then Honorable CM in the month of June. And within a period of 4 months, all these women could be made literate, and their studies continued even further. So on International Literacy Day, that was I think 8th of September, all of these women were made literate, and also the positive spillovers from Vidya infused Shakti in all of their lives. Because whenever I would go to visit these women, I would interact in very detailed way with these women, and I realized that they had a lot of other issues. For example, health issues. So we set up health camps, and some very touching testimonies, because earlier these women were, they did not want to go to the banks to take loans because they were, illiterate, Anguta Chap, and they did not want that to be seen in the banks. So a number of them got the confidence to take loans, and we also tagged them to the self-help groups under the Assam State Rural Livelihoods Mission. Next, please. So when I first joined the district and I reviewed the Anganwadi centers, I found that most of these centers were very old, dilapidated structures, which would seem very formidable to the eye of a child. If you can see here, these are some of the photographs, and the guardians had also gotten into the habit of eyeing these children as eyeing these centers as feeding centers for these children. So what we did is that this was only through local crowdsourcing and only through local CSR without any cost to the exchequer. We built up the first Anganwadi center in the district, which was model in every respect. We had rainwater harvesting, we had groundwater recharge, we had building as learning aid, Bala as it is called. We had, child-friendly furniture, child-friendly toilet, and so on. And this was basically an uplift of the Anganwadi, which had not been taken up in this area at all. This had cost us about 5 lakh rupees, and the results again were easy to see. The enrollment had doubled from 15, it reached 28, as many parents who had put their children in nearby day schools got them back. The attendance had increased, 68% increase in attendance. Also, we saw that while the children would not eat veggies at home, in the Anganwadi they would do that, they would come and eat the veggies. So there was also a reduction in malnutrition, and so these are some of the results. And at the same time, we tried to even go for a lower cost option. When we talked to the children and the parents as to what part of these Anganwadis they liked best, they said it was the Bala art and the colorful paintings and the figures. So we developed an Anganwadi light kind of a version that was only about 50,000, 48 to 50,000 rupees, and similar kind of results. Children started attending school more, attentiveness was more, and at the same time we had, as more and more, as the play area became more beautiful, the Anganwadi workers also became more enthused. So the parents also became more of brand ambassadors. We had a number of parents who would talk to others and ask them to get their children back into the Anganwadis. Next, please. STEM learning again for a district like Gwalior is a distant dream, even because there are so many braided sod areas because of the river. So what we did is that with the help of Donair Ministry, we had reached out to Donair for funds. We created the first smart classroom in Gwalior, and initially it was envisaged only for the particular school only for one school. I think this was. It was banned in the middle of the town. This was Gwalior Higher Secondary, the name of the school. So we had envisaged only for the school, but we had so much of demand for this smart classroom that eventually that classroom catered to all the schools of the cluster. which was about 6 to 7,000 children. So some other achievements under the aspirational district program. Next slide, please. When I used to interact with these people in the low literacy pockets, and actually this is not even for the low literacy pockets, this is even for us, we are all very reluctant to look into very wordy messages, IEC messages. I also, when I see a very wordy kind of thing, I feel, ki, yaar, who will read this? So what we did is that we created a protagonist called Pehi. Pehi means Bua. So Pehi is like a paternal aunt. So we created Pehi to take forward the IEC narrative, be it in health, be it in education, be it in various other areas. So this Pehi character would take forward the narrative for all the IEC messages from NHM and from Sarv Shiksha, Samagra Shiksha, and so on. Next, please. Some other achievements that we had achieved. I will not go too much into these details, but if anybody wants, I can take it offline maybe. Next slide. Okay, this is something that I would really like to flag because when the aspirational district program started, March 2018, Honorable Prime Minister had launched the program, and March 2018 में ही हम लोगों का, if you look at the structure of Assam, it is a linear kind of structure, and the main bridge on the highway that connects Guwahati to the rest of the state, the main bridge on NH, I think that was NH 17, the bridge broke down and we started getting choked off of all raw material supply for road construction. And we have two KPIs in the aspirational district program: the connectivity of roads, that is the number of roads, the length of roads constructed, and the number of habitations connected. And over a period of 3-4 months, by May or by June 2018, our work had come to a standstill. So it was in a moment of sheer panic and desperation that, I told my officers, why don't we think of green technologies? So it is hats off to the PWD department officers of that time that they took this up, they studied the whole process, they even took it up with the state secretariat for a change in the procedure, and Gwalpara became the first district in Assam to construct roads using plastic waste under Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. And I'll just, flag a couple of very interesting points in this slide. I'm sorry it's a bit wordy, but I have so much content that I don't know what to take up. But if you can look at the bottom middle part, so from 2000 to 2018, the road length constructed was only 534 kilometers, which comes to an average of only about 29 kilometers per year. However, from 2018 to 2020, the road length constructed was 530 kilometers, and this was only possible due to the use of green technologies like waste plastic, like ICPP. So through various green technologies, we could achieve this result. Also, Clean Gwalpara, Green Gwalpara, where we have taken up plantation with protection measure of 15 lakh saplings. About 60% of these survived, and the last figure from the Social Forestry Department was that the forest cover had increased from about 19% to about 25%. Next slide, please. So I would just like to, because Assam, if you know all of us, I think there are some of us from outside, or some of us from outside lower Assam. Assam is disaster prone. Gwalpara especially was prone to flash floods because of the rundown of waters from the Garo hills. So if you see here, these are two adjacent PMGSY roads. The lower one is constructed using self-fill technology, which is the green technology, and the upper one is constructed using the standard technology palette. So these are very adjacent roads. If you can closely see I don't think it would be visible here, but if one can see the coordinates there. So these are adjacent roads, but obviously the damage to the standard one is much more. At the same time, we have youth who started doing ICPP factories, and for example, this person was sort of unemployed, looking for thekas, and he set up this factory, and then in a period of 4-5 months, he started giving employment to about 25 numbers of persons. So it also created local employment. Next slide, please. Okay, so Walmart is again an initiative that has received the Prime Minister's Award and also the National Award for E-Governance in Gold category in 2020. Basically, what Walmart does is that it provides a common platform for all the SMGs, all the artisans, all the agriculturists to sell their product. And this is something which we have developed in-house to the local NIC. And the advantage of having something Walmart why Walmart, why not an Amazon? The advantage is that when it is Walmart, when the district administration has nurtured this, obviously the origin of the good is confirmed. You may have, say, a Raha Padhar available on Amazon from various different places. But when it is Gwalpara, which is the cultural, one of the cultural centers of the Rahas, you know that this Padhar is actually originating from Gwalpara. So Walmart is another initiative I wanted to talk about. Next slide, please. I'm running through the slides because I have a lot of content. Some achievements in agriculture that I'll not go too much into details. Next slide, please. Okay, this is again a slide on how data-driven governance had helped us achieve the results. Anybody interested, I'll share my email ID. You could maybe get in touch with me offline. Next slide, please. Okay, some other technological interventions. I think I'll go to the Kokrajhar part now because I've spoken a lot on Gwalpara. Next, please. Some of the initiatives during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, please. So, Kokrajhar, we are all here in Kokrajhar. It is a district abutting the Bhutan, on the Bhutan border. District again is disaster prone. It has a very wide multiplicity of, in terms of number of communities and so on. District is again disaster prone. So in Kokrajhar, what we started working on is on malnutrition because Kokrajhar has, if you look at the performances, 34% stunting of children, 20% wasting and so on. So next slide, please. I think, how much time do I have? So I'll just wind up in maybe 3-4 minutes more. So again, similar method that we have taken up. Next slide. The first intervention was Poshan clubs because we were working on Poshan, we were working on malnutrition. Through these children, we had launched these clubs in the various schools and we tried to create outreach programs through these Poshan clubs. Next slide. Zothon or Khangnai. Zothon or Khangnai essentially means that we had all our government officers and officials. They came forward and each one, I would not say adoption per se, but each person took care of a family which had a SAM child. SAM means severe malnourishment and MAM means selective malnourishment. So, so Zothon essentially means care. And they took up these children. Next slide, please. The Smart Papa campaign, when you see, even when I talk to my husband, the fathers are not very, with all due respect to the males sitting here, generally fathers do not take too much of an interest in the parenting or, the nutrition decisions of the child. So we try to get fathers to take up more of a responsibility in terms of parenting. So this is what the Smart Papa campaign was about. Next slide. Uneni Larson, when what we saw is that there is a direct correlation between the education level of the mother and the nutrition of the child. So mothers who are 12 plus tend to have a more diverse kind of a palate, a diverse kind of a menu for the child. So in Oneni Nursen, camps, in-situ camps were taken up for mothers of children that were malnourished, and here they were taught not only about, from everything from breastfeeding to menstrual hygiene, and even on, what we saw is that a lot of times the malnourished children are not actually from the BPL families. Sometimes the mother, she doesn't give a very diverse menu when the child refuses to eat. So we even taught them how to cook very delicious food. So this is Oneni Nursen. Next slide. Poshan Vatikas. 100% we try to put Vatikas in all of the Anganwadis. Next slide. ODOP. Our ODOP, fortunately for us, is mushroom. And in fact, hats off to Boroland University. I don't know if there is anybody from the biotechnology or the technology incubation center. Is there anybody from biotech here in the audience? Okay. So we have this biotech department come out with, the department has been doing a lot of work on mushroom, and they have come out with a range of 13 products. So we have tried to introduce these in the midday meals of these school children. Next slide. So these are some of the outcomes, and I'll end with this. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam, for your insightful talk on good governance and grassroots perspectives. It is indeed that positive initiatives on the part of the administration can make a lot of difference at the grassroots level. So, thank you for sharing your rich insights. All the good work that you have done at the grassroots level. We wish we could have got more from you and we had more time. Quickly, we'll move to our next speaker, Professor Mrinal Kanti from IIT Guwahati. He is associated with Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Guwahati. His areas of interest include regional economic development, environmental economics, and agricultural economics. Uh, he has served as a member in various committees such as the 6th Assam State Finance Commission, Minimum Wage Advisory Committee Government of Assam, Indian Society of Agricultural Economics. He is also a governor's nominee, a member of the Canute Council at Rabindranath Tagore University, Gujarat, Assam. He is currently a member over there. So, sir, without much further ado, I would like to request you to come over and deliver your talk on good governance and development. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Well, thank you, respected chairperson, Dr. Nayan Jyoti, and a very good afternoon to all of you. It's my privilege to be part of this initiative, first Bodoland International Knowledge Festival, being organized by the BTR administration and Bodoland University. I have been given the task of speaking on the theme of good governance and economic development. And already my previous speakers have spoken on various issues of good governance. Particularly, Professor Sen has given a wonderful beginning to the theme of good governance, followed by Deputy Commissioner Ma'am, who has worked at the grassroots level, and she knows a lot about the issues the districts are facing, the state is facing, and accordingly, what kind of intervention will be more appropriate for them. Okay, so when talking about economic development as a student of economics, I know that economic development actually tries to provide or enlarge people's choices. Well, the process of development enlarges people's choices to have a better living in the form of better health, better education, and in the form of actually getting better employment opportunities and so many other things. Now, while talking about development, we should also keep in mind that it's not exactly something like growth, where the process might be a kind of spontaneous, and in which certain things of development may not be there. For example, when we talk about development as such, we try to define development in terms of structural change in the economy. So, importance of different sectors in the economy, for example, primary sector's contribution, secondary sector's contribution, and so many other things we try to find out, and how it changes over a period of time. For example, today, India is a service sector-oriented economy, but at one point of time, India was kind of primary sector-dominated economy. So those things we try to talk about, and also we talk about the kind of change in the institutions, change in the values and customs, and so many other things. Some of these things might happen automatically, but for some others, it may not happen automatically. For example, when we talk about institutions, institutional changes basically means changes in the policies, changes in the rules, changes in the kind of way things are done by the government following particular guidelines. So those things are there. And in fact, those guidelines cannot change automatically. So if development has to be achieved, so the changes has to be undertaken to cope up with the demand situation in near time. So for that, somebody has to ensure that changes are happening in the institutional level, and that is how actually I feel the role of government and an effective governance comes in here. Now, while talking about next one. Now, you see, governance can be defined in terms of various indicators. Already, Censor has actually tried to give an overview while talking about the governance things. And there are many ways you can define it governance. It's a multi-facet concept actually. It's not very easy to define. The overall you can define. It includes so many things. But basically we try to understand these as exercise of authority through various means. It might be institutions, formal institutions, it might be informal institutions. Basically the way you exercise your authority. Obviously government will be definitely part of that. And there are many definitions of authority. Go to the next one. So World Bank has given certain definitions, so that is reflected over here. So it says that governance is nothing but capacity of management and institutional reforms conducted by state policy that improve coordination and delivery of effective public services. UNDP has given another definition, which actually talks about three governance agents. One is the political one is economic one, and the other one is administrative one. In fact, this entire concept of governance will have a number of dimensions. Of course, political dimension, economic dimension, then administrative dimension. Those will be institutional dimensions will be very important out there. Also, we talk about accountability. We talk about transparency, and we also talk about kind of involving people at the process in the process of taking decisions and implementation of various programs. For example, we talk about decentralization of decentralized process of economic development, wherein in case of India, we are having the 73rd Amendment of the Constitution. Panchayati Raj institution has been implemented. The way actually we carry it out, basically we try to understand that this is a participatory governance process where people are taking part not only in the formulation of programs but also in enactment of different programs which are meant for different sections of the society. So that is also a component of governance. In fact, so there are many facets. We will not go to that. Go to the next one. But the fact is that the concept of governance or good governance can mean things that have different meaning in different states or countries. In fact, it can be contextualized and it should be contextualized. Because while Madam was presenting, she was talking about two different districts. One is Gwalpara and the other one was Kokrajhar. So Gwalpara will be having its own different issues, whereas Kokrajhar might be having different characteristics. So in relation to all those characteristics, probably governance is to be defined or good governance is to be defined. And accordingly, plans and policies are to be enacted in an effective manner. Next. These are some of the definitions which you will come across while talking about literature. A lot of definitions will be there. And in fact, so many of them actually try to integrate this or link it with the rule of law, accountability, transparency, and relationship between the state and the society, public-private relations. All those things are actually tried to be, the links between all these things are tried to be established out there. Now, the fact is that many of them we say that one form of good governance is democratic governance. Censor has already talked about that actually. Whether democratic government or democratic governance is always leading to certain positive results in the society. Many times it is not. So, although the effort is there to establish democratic governance as a kind of proxy to good governance, that also may not happen all the time. And also, let me tell you that always it's not necessary that while talking about economic development or development as such, so governance or good governance always may not be promoting economic development. Of course, there are many studies which have tried to establish the positive relationship between good governance and economic development. But there are, contrary to those things, there are certain studies which actually have found that with poor governance also, greater growth or greater development can be achieved. And many times they give the example of Bangladesh. In fact, in one of the studies they have found that although Bangladesh's governance system may not be very good, but they have done remarkably well in many parameters, including productivity, including health and education development, which are very important from the point of view of economic development. Next. So we can look into the definition of World Bank on good governance, which say actually, there are three processes they are talking about. three things. One is the process by which governments are selected, monitored, or maybe replaced. Secondly, the capacity of the government to effectively formulate and implement sound policies, and the respect of citizens and state product institutions that govern economic and social interactions among them. Basically, three things are there. One is the process of government selection, so whether it is democratic or not, whatever that may be. Secondly, its effectiveness in formulating and implementing policies. And thirdly, the trust or confidence of the people on the government. So these are very important things. So once the people have the confidence in the governance system, that might result in kind of development or change in the society. Next. So of course, there are a lot of indicators how governance can be measured. In fact, a few efforts are something like this. Worldwide governance indicator is one of them. Actually, they have tried to incorporate a number of dimensions. 6 parameters they have tried to bring in, and in fact, through which they try to examine the administrative, political, and economic governance things out there. Similarly, Transparency International, so they have been publishing the Corruption Perception Index for so many years now, maybe from 1995 onwards. And in fact, that gives you idea about the kind of practice of corruption, perception about corruption in a particular country. And in fact, if we try to rank it across different countries, always India will be always at the lower level of this governance index or maybe corruption perception index. At the state level or maybe national level, we have good governance index, so which is being published by Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances of Government of India. Would like to have a look at those things. Next. Next. Previous one. Go back. Yeah. These are some of the actually indicators which are being used in case of good governance. Governance indicators, basically, worldwide governance indicators. If you look into it, you'll find a number of things over here. One is the voice and accountability, political instability and violence, effectiveness of government, rule of law, quality control, control of corruption. So these 6 parameters are already indicators are taken into account. So all these indicators are reflecting one or other aspect of the good governance. Next one. It is a good governance index that we talked about at the national level. So this has been published since 2019. Initially, there were 50 indicators, but since 2020-21, so they have considered 58 indicators and 10 sectors. In fact, here, so what they have done, it's not exactly the kind of worldwide governance indicators. So what they have tried to find out, they have tried to see the impact on different sectors of the economy, along with certain other issues like economic governance and so many other things. So they have brought in here. And so there are a number of indicators, as I have pointed out. So 58 indicators are there. For example, agriculture is included, then health is included, and commerce and industry is included. So many departments are involved over here. There are different sectors over here. And as you know, actually, the governance will be varying from state to state, region to region. In these good governance index, the government has tried to kind of group different states in the country. So as per different, you cannot say according to different parameters. For example, other states, Group A, Group B, they have combined, but they have tried to give ranking to these things. So we can have a look into that. Can we go to the next one? So Group A and Group B, if you look into, you will find. So some of the states are doing remarkably well. For example, Gujarat have done extremely well insofar as this good governance index. In the second group also we have a number of states. For example, in the first group we have 10 states. In the second group we have 8 states. But of course, next, when you talk about this governance indicators, actually there are certain issues. One is with the aggregation kind of a thing. We try to aggregate different indicators and accordingly try to find out a composite index kind of a thing. So aggregating them itself becomes difficult many a time. So whether we are giving equal weight or kind of different kind of weights, those things are also important. Second thing is, if we are trying to go for comparison across different countries, so data compatibility becomes important. So all those things make these indicators or index a little bit difficult to analyze or maybe compare. So, but even then, this will give you some kind of idea how different countries are performing in terms of governance indicators, or maybe how different states or regions are performing in terms of different governance indicators. Next slide, please. Now, when you talk about good governance and economic development or development per se, there are many studies which have been carried out, and there are many empirical studies which actually have established that good governance is very important from the point of view of economic development or development as such. So they have found, many of them have found positive correlation. Means greater the good governance, better is the economic development performance. So this type of relationship they have found. There are many studies actually which talk about that. At the same time, there are certain regression studies which have tried to find out cause and effect relationship, whether good governance has been in a position to push up economic development in a region or countries across a different region. So those things have been studied, and it has been found that by and large, economic development is positively influenced by good governance. There are many reasons for that, probably. But one thing is that when people will have trust and faith in a system, obviously the programs can be delivered in a better way, the services can be provided in a better way, and people will be participating in a better way in the entire process. So that probably may be one of the reasons why good governance might be positively influencing the economic development process. Also, the thing is that, so if you're talking from the point of view of economic growth or development as such, maybe confidence of people in the system is very important. Trust of the people in the system is very important. Okay, so if somebody has to come and invest somewhere, they will definitely see or look into the situation, whether it is kind of militancy dominated area, whether the government is effectively functioning, whether the public delivery system is very good. So all those things will be looked into by the prospective investors. Now, if we find the situation is good, governance system is good, definitely that will help in improving the trust of the people, basically the investors who can actually invest. And this is important from the point of view of underdeveloped regions or maybe kind of more backward regions like Northeast region. So which is actually facing the problem of underdevelopment as well as problem of poor governance. Next one. The next one. Next. So I'm coming to this few slides again. Governance in Northeastern region. Since we are here and in the Northeast, so we should also talk about a little bit on Northeast India and governance. Northeast India as a whole is a kind of backward economy. All of us know it very well. It's a resource poor region. Although at some point of time we're ahead of the national average, that's a different issue altogether. From 1960s, we are below the national average in terms of economic parameters, and since then we are continuing being below the national average. And economic post-liberalization, we have found that while the rest of the country has progressed faster, the region has not been performing that well. The gap between the national average, the rest of the country and the region has widened over a period of time. And also, the fact is that the region depends very heavily on the center. They are not self-reliant economies. Hardly 35% or maybe 36% of the total resources might be generated within. So other things, support might be coming from the government, central government in different forms. So under this situation, if development has to happen, the limited resources have to be properly utilized. Okay, so here actually we come across the role of governance as well. So if you look into the situation here, for example, if you look at certain development initiatives in the state of Assam itself, what you find is that so it took decades or maybe ages for certain programs or projects to complete. You can remember many of them. For example, if I give you an example, this is second Saragat Bridge. First Saragat Bridge was constructed, I think, way back in 1962. Second Saragat Bridge was started, I think, in 2007 or 2008. But it took more than 10 years for completion. Hardly 1.4 kilometer wide river, the bridge is to be constructed. It took more than 10 years. So that is this long delay because of certain things where the government was not at all effective. So created a lot of problem for the people, for the commuters, because the promoter has to be crossed. There is huge traffic jam. A lot of people have to die because of the traffic jam. So that is one thing where we find the problem was accentuated over a period of time. Second example I am giving you, the East-West corridor. It was extended from Gujarat to Silchar. And you know the rest of the part has been more or less completed. But a small section of the East-West corridor, Mahasara, is yet to be completed till today. So, the as we, all of us know it very well, the northeastern region is having the problem with infrastructure and transportation. The cost of transportation here is relatively much higher compared to other part of the country because of the fare rate. So, under this situation, if such a big growth or such a big transport network is incomplete for so many years, so that is an unfortunate case. I feel governance has a very important role to play over here. Next one. So here I'm trying to bring in this good governance index again, which is being actually constructed by the government of India. Now, if you look at here, there are two more groups. One is the Union Territory group, and the other one is the Northeast and Hill States. And you find that in case of Northeast Hill States, the most of the states in the Northeast, they are performing much lower in terms of good governance index. So that basically means not only in terms of effectiveness of the governance system, but also in terms of performance in very specific sector. So they are performing very bad. Assam's position is also very bad, and you see around 4.02%. This is the composite index I am talking about, not the individual indicators. So this is one thing which where we have to ponder over, and we need to be a little bit very careful and kind of, you see, governance in itself is nothing. We are part of the governance of itself actually. So we need to be very careful. We need to be resilient the way things are done, and accordingly we have to act. So that is very important. So next one. So how will we ensure good governance? Obviously, there are a number of things. We need to have transparency. Obviously, everybody talks about that. But for making that happen is not an easy task. So probably, as you told me, as I have referred or mentioned, the society has to play a bigger role over there. The civil society has to come in big way. So they have to be resilient about the different activities or maybe the way things are carried out, the programs are being carried out. So all those things are to be monitored properly and accordingly. Civil society has to play an active role. I'm just giving you an example, small example. Many government programs are being implemented. I'm not saying against government, but even then, certain things are many a time ignored. See, we talk about plantation drive. It's a very simple thing. For example, a few years back, there was a plantation drive near here, probably Chotaki was the name of the place, where a record was being created for planting, okay, kind of maximum number of trees in a single day, right? That is one thing, government initiative, government programs or whatever that was being done. But the fact is that, so that initiative, whether that initiative has made any impact on the society or the people at large, so that is to be looked into. So how we should do that? It's not the plantation only is the thing. We need to monitor what percentage of the plants or saplings that are planted are actually nurtured or have survived over a period of time. That is also to be looked into. The monitoring part or the kind of maintenance of these things are also to be looked into properly. Okay, so when we talk about certain programs, many government programs are there. For example, the previous speaker, Visina, pointed out a number of initiatives being taken by the government. But unfortunately, what happens? Any kind of new initiative being implemented or initiated by one administrator may not be continued during the term of the next administrator. That is the most unfortunate thing. What I feel is that for having a good governance and for having an effective governance, the best practices need to be continued. And for that, actually, the government or when government decided has to function properly. And the civil society has an important role over here. Similarly, the media also has an important role to play over here. So, to conclude, what I would like to say is that next. So India has progressed a lot in recent years in terms of growth performance. But in terms of governance, of course, we have not seen that happening. So as per this Transparency International's report, the corruption perception index, India is still at the low place of 85 in 2023, January 2022. So that is obviously one issue of concern, so that needs to be improved. So we have surpassed within in terms of GDP, no doubt. So we are taking pride in that. But the fact is that India is nomads in terms of per capita income. India's GDP is around 2,200 US dollar, and UK's GDP per capita, and UK's GDP per capita is around maybe 46,000 US dollar. So in that case, we have a long way to go. So in terms of economic growth, in terms of overall development. So for a state like, or for a country like India, which has, which the welfare state, delivering public utility services effectively is one important concern. So obviously, for these things to happen, governance has to improve. It should be a better governance system. So I believe the governance system in the country will be improved. But for that to happen, we all have a very important role. The strong civil society, a vibrant non-governmental organization, and all those things will be very important. And so now we realize these things and act accordingly, it will be better for overall development in the country. With these words, I thank all of you for your present hearing, and I thank the organizers for giving me a chance to take part in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful talk on how good governance can actually contribute to economic development, and most importantly, highlighting the areas of improvement when it comes to good governance as we move forward. Our next speaker is Ms. Rashida Swami, who is a public policy practitioner with over a decade of experience in the field in conceptualizing, demonstrating, and utilizing mechanisms of social accountability, which is an area of expertise, and delivery of schemes and functioning of public institutions in our country. She's also the founder and head of Social Accountability Forum for Action and Research, SUFFER, where she along with her team has worked on building rule-based public accountability frameworks, a very important aspect of good governance, in collaboration with governments and civil society organizations across India. SUFFER primarily has its presence in Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Kerala, and Meghalaya, and has worked on various governance-related aspects in different parts of the country. Our topic of delivery would be good governance and social accountability. Madam, I would request you to please, come forward and take the stage for delivery.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me properly? Because I was actually struggling to hear a lot more. I was so much closer to the mic. So I just wanted to check, can people behind hear what I'm saying? Or do I need to be louder? Okay, thank you for letting me. Thank you for inviting me and the organization that I belong to this very important conversation. And I don't want to take very long. I know I have 20 minutes, but I can see much of the people going towards closer to where the tea is. So I can get a sense it's been a tiring day. So there are essentially four things that I really wanted to convey on this topic that was given for a conversation: good governance and social accountability. First, it's actually the term good governance in itself is something that I think can give us a little bit to think about. Who actually is calling governance good or bad? If the people who are governing are find this kind of governance good or adequate or all right, then it's definitely a problem. And I think that it's also in feminist literature, you see that you have a definition of a good girl, a good boy, a good child, a good parent, and these categories are actually more limiting than enabling. So I think the first thing that did come to my mind is, why do we call a particular kind of governance good? Is it because governments, ranking agencies call it so, or do people believe it is actually something that empowers them or disempowers them? Uh, the second connective bit is, if we don't go by these categories of what governance is good or bad, one thing that I do want to share is, a lot of what I'm trying to communicate is looking at governance from a bias where it's people and citizens who are actually getting empowered and not committees, institutions, inspectors, councils. So it's the kind of governance that I think is the kind of governance that we need to pursue towards, whether we're a state, whether we're a civil society, whether we as journalists are writing about it, the kind that actually empowers people who are facing the ugly side of governance is the kind of governance that I hope we can think more about, talk more about, and advocate more for. Um, I want to take this opportunity. There's particularly the speaker before me did articulate a whole lot of literature and concepts on governance, which has been very helpful to throw some light on to understand more about aspects of governance. But I want to take you to a story which comes from a district in Rajasthan, very far away, called Bhilwara, where a community of Dalits, just like you have scheduled tribes here, you have a scheduled caste community in Rajasthan and in different parts of the country, which continue to be socially and politically marginalized. It was a community that was facing the violation of governance on a day-to-day basis, and it was one of the incidents where the community was not even allowed to enter a religious structure that they pray to and they have faith in. And actually, they were the one, a question was put to that community of what is the kind of a structure, a political structure, an administrative structure that you think is accountable to you, is what you think is appropriate governance. And they came out with 6 fantastic principles, which I feel there's no theorist who could have thought of this, because it's only those who feel the lack of governance on their skin, जिनको पता है जब governance नहीं होता है तो कितनी तकलीफ होती है. If they are given a platform and an opportunity to articulate what kind of governance they need, they do say it in the simplest and the most powerful ways. And it's those 6 principles that I want to talk about, and we call it the Bhilwara framework of governance and accountability to give credit to the people who theorized it. These were practitioners and people who theorized it, and it's now part of government rules. It's part of the CAG standards and audit. They've also come into policy, but the route was there. So the first thing they said was, you can't even begin the process of governance. I'm going to mix a little bit of Hindi and English. Is there somebody who's not comfortable with Hindi? Please do let me know. So the first thing they said, without information, without transparency, the ship of governance can't even begin to sail. So जब तक जानकारी हाथ में नहीं है, तब तक जवाबदेही का कोई जरिया ही नहीं है. And they made a distinction. They said, we don't want सूचना, we want जानकारी, which the closest translation in English is, we don't want data, we want actionable information. I don't want to be told that Bharat has to be Swachh, there have to be toilets, but I want to be told, how can I construct a toilet, what is the amount of money I'm going to get, when is my 3rd installment going to come after the 2nd installment, if I have a grievance, who do I go to? So I need actionable information. मुझे जानकारी चाहिए, मुझे सूचना नहीं चाहिए. So without transparency, without access to information, I can't even begin the conversation of governance or accountability. The second thing they said, even if I know what I'm entitled to, even when I know what I'm supposed to get, if I don't get it, what do I do unless I have a right to be heard? The usual refrain of, हमारी कौन सुनता है या सुनती है. Even if I have a grievance, I can't say. So the second principle they said was essential is I have a right to be heard. You have to hear what I'm saying. You have to acknowledge what I've said. You have to register what I've said. So the second element after Jankari became Sunwai. The third principle of governance they said was अगर हमारी कोई सुन भी लेता है, somebody even hears me, there is no guarantee that what I have told is going to be acted upon within a time frame. If I'm a district collector's relative, perhaps I make a complaint in 2 days, the matter will be sorted. But if I'm a poor farmer who has access to really nothing, it may take me months or years for that complaint to be even acted upon. So after Jankari, after Sunwai, I need guaranteed time-bound action, Karewai, on what I have said, what I have given my dissent on, what I have complained about. So that became the third principle of, since I don't like the term good governance, of democratic governance. Then the fourth said that in the process of being heard, in the process of me seeking information, me filing a complaint, and action being taken on it, I have no guaranteed protection that I will be allowed to participate in the process of my own redress. So some collector, some official sitting in a capital will look at my file, will say, okay, these are the issues, this is what is the evidence presented, this person is wrong for these following reasons. I'm not even given an opportunity to participate in the process of building my own case. So the fourth critical element they said was bhagidari sunishchit honi hai. You're following the Hindi, I hope it's not too pure or whatever. So the fourth principle became bhagidari. So jankari, sunwai, karyawari, bhagidari. The fifth, they said, in a country like ours, the first person who asks a question, who wants to know more information, who wants to file a complaint, is going to be the first person who will be attacked, intimidated, and scared. So in this scenario, what protection do I have to participate in this process of governance that you say I should be? We all say participatory governance, we all say democratic governance, but where is the guarantee that I will be protected if I actually engage in this process? So the fifth principle then became Suraksha. And then the last thing they pointed out was that even if all these 5 principles are met, if I have access to information, if I can file my complaint and be heard, if my complaint is acted upon in a process where I got the chance to participate, still if the interaction is between me as an individual and Sarkar, then the power will always weigh in favor of government, in favor of administration. So I want to have a conversation with government or with administration in a public collective forum where there are more of me than more of government talking to me. So the sixth principle became Janta Ka Manch. There have to be public collective platforms of dialogue between citizens and power or state. So these became the 6 principles that we call, जिसे हम कहते हैं भीलवाड़ा framework of governance, of democratic governance, of accountability. And I feel that really it's, if we look at who is governance serving, if actually the poorest and the historically the most marginalized are able to have access to these 6 principles in a practical sense, then we can actually say we're moving towards a culture of democratic governance. And the one thing that I also wanted to give as an example is, we all have a right to vote, right? We have this is called as the biggest gift of our democracy. All of us have a right to vote and decide who will govern us, under, of course, a transaction of rule and law, but who will govern us. The government doesn't just say you have a right to vote and leave you. It doesn't say you go when there are elections, you go where you want to go, you cast a vote. If something happens to you, sorry. That's your hit. We all know when elections happen in our country, the kind of what you call intizam, bandobast, that government does. Polling stations, at the most you all see visuals, photos in the last village of the country, you'll have polling agents going. You have protocols. All of government administration is deputed to the job. People, government officials, administrative officials are put on what you call election duty. All of this happens so that the last person in this country can exercise their right to vote, which is one of the most important rights in our democracy. So the state puts out a framework, it puts out rules, it puts out laws, it puts out processes, it gives you platforms so that whether you're poor, whether you're rich, with irrespective of which class, community, religion, gender, sexual orientation you come from, you all can exercise your right to vote equally. Similarly, if we want all citizens to engage in governance, to participate in governance, the state has to provide such a framework. It can't just say that, okay, you ask information, if something happens to you, it's at your own cost. We're sorry. Okay, file a complaint, but if it's not acted upon, we are not responsible. Similarly, the state, and when I mean the state, I don't mean a state government, I mean government in general, has to provide a framework. It has to provide mechanisms, a legal framework that people can participate in to get information, to file complaints, to pursue the redressal of their own complaints, to be a part of planning of what are the kind of works that should be taken up. Unless the government provides these frameworks of participation, we can just keep talking about governance and efforts to strengthen and deepen democracy, but government has to be accountable to the very people that it's trying to govern and give them a right to actually participate in governance. These are just some of the very short comments that I wanted to leave with you all, and happy to have a conversation with you all during chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. When you talk of governance, I'll not use the word good governance now. So when you talk of governance, it is very important to have a perspective with practitioners, insights. Share work on social accountability and how we can make our governance systems more participatory. And Madam has been kind enough to share her rich insights and devise ways, or rather kind of come up with inputs which would help us to develop more participative governance systems going forward. Thank you, Madam, for your rich insights. Our next speaker will talk about sustainability and how good governance is associated with sustainability. Professor Diwan Mishra from Aligarh Muslim University is also the operating director of Murshidabad campus, Aligarh Muslim University. He has over 2 decades of working in this particular area. He has created multiple publications in various national and international journals. He is also a life member of National Institute of Personal Management, NIPM, Northeast Economic Association, Indian Commerce Association, and Indian Academy of Social Sciences. Sir, we request you to please come forward and add to this discourse on good governance. The topic of evaluation will be good governance and sustainability. Sir.
Thank you so much. I think I'm audible. So, good afternoon, everyone present over here, respected dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, delegates, students, the guests present over here. First of all, I thank the university as well as the committee for inviting me in this auspicious occasion. So, without wasting time, let me start the presentation in a very precise manner. I'll be emphasizing upon a few issues already spoken by the previous speakers, like about the government agencies, about good governance, and particularly I'll be trying to build relationship between sustainability and the governance, because this governance is meant for sustainability, long-term sustainability. Without sustainability, any government cannot smoothly run the state, run the country, run the world as a whole, because government function determines the sustainability. And when you talk of governance, it is precisely defined as governance is what a government does, right? So it should be an accountable government. Every accountable government is successful. Means government should take the responsibility of everything, of the people, of the society, of the environment. Government should have a strong system, socio-economic system, political system to build in. Government should have a solid institution to help the people, because government has to ensure the sustainability of the society. So if we talk of government, next slide, please go to next slide. Government should have high level of flexibility. Please, next slide. Flexibility, it should be a very transparent and institution based. It should have very efficient and effective system to run the state, to run uh, the institution, to run the nation, to run the local bodies, activities of local bodies. It should be based on information, adequate information. It should have the right to empower the people with a view to ensure different kind of sustainability. It should ensure human rights. It should guide the people. It should create awareness among the people. It should be based on pluralism, political pluralism, and government should always help the people who require help whenever they deserve it. What I mean to say that good governance is very essential component of a governance. Now, how do we define good governance? To what extent a government is good or bad? How do we define a good government? So it is a relative term, and one government is running smoothly. When there is a change in government, they call it bad government or poor government. So it is a relative term. But certain features will definitely give certain indication about whether the government is good or not, if they are accountable or not. Whatever activity they have done, they have shown, they have exhibited accountability or not, whether the government was transparent or not, to what extent they are transparent, to what extent they are responsive, or to what extent they have ensured equality in our society, to what extent they have promoted inclusiveness, and how they run the government efficiently and effectively, and to what extent they 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 are they were uh, taken means people's opinion, people's feedback, people's participation, to what extent they ensure people's participation in decision making process, and to what extent they have followed the rule. So if it is so, if it is fulfilling all those criteria, then we call it a good government, good governance. Or a quality of good government is to ensure good governance. Means they should have fulfill all the basic features of good governance. People's participation, to what extent they are following the democratic rule, their corruption, their the corruption-free system they have introduced, and accountability is very important. These are the very important components of good governance. Say, for example, like effectiveness and efficiency and process of the institution, to what extent they ensure, and the rule of law, and how many means means to what extent they have adopted citizen-centric process for the people, whether they are for the people or not, whether they are having greater participation of citizen in any activity or not, whether the system was transparent or not. So government role is to ensure transparency. Government role is to ensure democracy. Government role is to ensure citizen-centric policy. Like the Modi government introduces Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So it is one of the examples of good governance. But to what extent these things are being implemented, that we have to question on. Participation of the people, like opportunity to participate during the formulation of development strategy. When government undertakes any government and developmental project, developmental strategy being adopted, to what extent people's opinion are taken into account. I think most of the cases people's opinion are not taken into account when strategic formulation is done. People's are not being considered, people's feedbacks are not taken into account, right? So it is not the example of good governance. And information before doing anything, whether adequate information has been imparted to people or not. Okay, so like when a project is undertaken, some development work is undertaken. So in that case, people's opinion must be taken into account. If it is not done, then government cannot sustain in long run. Then freedom of expression, freedom of association. If government does not ensure freedom of association and freedom of expression, then the government does not allow this kind of policies in the system, in the society. That is not a good government, which is not to be taken into account or to be considered as example of good governance. Civil society, to what extent they are satisfied. Indian example of India, the people are not satisfied because of the nature of the government, because of the people's participation is negligible. So civil society's involvement in decision-making process in a bureaucratic or autocratic system, people's discontentment is maximum. Therefore, government cannot be sustainable on. It is the responsibility of the government to ensure people's participation. I am repeatedly saying it: people's participation, civil society's participation in the governmental decision-making process, in the development process. People's feedback are to be taken into account in most of the cases. Then transparency is to be introduced. To what extent we are transparent? We common people are not very transparent in every activity. We believe in giving bribe, and this has become a system. Government official receives bribe. Systems are not very transparent. Particularly, the government system is not very transparent, and sometimes the people are being harassed because of not giving bribe. So people are compelled to give bribe. So this is not an example of good governance. So everywhere we need to change ourselves. We are not supposed to blame the government only. We are to blame ourselves because the government is elected by we people. So whenever we are casting vote in their favor or someone's favor, so we must take care of this issue. If a corrupt government is ruling us, that is directly means that the people of that particular area is fully solely responsible because we have selected them. So government selection before selecting a political, because we are casting vote in favor of a political party, not a person, no educated person, honest person. We are not casting votes. So therefore, we cannot blame the government. Whatever problem we are facing, whatever discrimination we are facing, whatever challenges we are facing in our day-to-day life, we are responsible for that. So because government we have selected, they are corrupt government. Therefore, people's role is not cannot be ignored. So every time we need to be very careful. Awareness among the society, awareness among the people has to be ensured by the media itself. So everyone's role is there to ensure good governance. Good governance does not mean the government will do everything for you people. You are not to do anything, but you people have to be involved in every activity, decision-making process. You have to guide the government, and whenever there is any project, you people have to means raise your voice if quality is compromised, if things are done illegally. So you have to raise this issue because your voice is very important to ensure good governance. Your vote is very important, right? So don't cast your vote anywhere. So you select a person who is very honest, who is educated, who is sincere, who can do something for the society, who can do something for the youth. Then only good governance can be ensured. A person who is very good in a but joined in a corrupt political party cannot ensure good governance, cannot work in isolation. So you have to select a person who is very honest, who is very sincere, who is very committed to work for the society, work for the people. Don't cast your vote in favor of any particular political party. Rather, cast a vote for a good person who can contribute, who can do something for you. Then only good governance can be ensured. Means we are responsible for everything. It is not only government. So your role is not cannot be ignored. So we are not supposed to blame the government only. Then government responsiveness is also not favorable. Government does not want to develop a particular means project, particular area, particular locality. People are discriminated. People are being deprived of. So therefore, governmental role is very important. People's role is very important here. People have to make the government responsive. Then people have to ensure that the equality is being ensured by the system. Then you need to ensure the governmental effectiveness and efficiency. You have to force them. You have to make them happen because government may not willing to do that. You have to make it happen. Social inequality comes from illiteracy. Then you have to be literate. You need to create awareness in the society. People's involvement, people's accountability, not only government's accountability is required. People's accountability is also important. So, good government needs to be for good government, the people's participation, people's right, people's role, people's means contribution, involvement is very essential. Without that, good government means cannot be ensured. Because of the core elements when you are talking of governance, it is transparency, it is integrity. People should be very transparent. People should participate. People should be accountable. People should be responsive. People should help developing sound policy. People should have the integrity. People should be free from means all sort of corruption, wrongdoing. We are giving bribe, it's wrongdoing. We are promoting corruption. So we should avoid all kinds of things. Otherwise, we cannot ensure good governance. Attitude of the people have to be changed. Government role is to empower the people, but attitude of the people should also be changed. It should be positive. Everyone can contribute in good governance. It is not the government itself. Political will may be negative, but we will make the political party to make something means happen which is good for the society. Then gender equality is also an important factor, which is a part of good governance. So where females have been discriminated, we need to take care of that. Society has to come up for female education. Okay, we are discriminating. Society itself is discriminating the woman, the female. So we need to educate ourselves. We need not to discriminate the people, women. We need not to discriminate the children. So society's role is very important. I feel that this is my personal opinion is that the it is the role of the people who is having more important than government role. Whatever government does, let the government do it. But we people will form a good government which can provide us good governance. Because sustainability issue, when you are talking on without good governance, sustainability cannot be done. Sustainability in the sense that our social sustainability, our rights, human rights, cannot be ensured with people's participation. So therefore, people's participation, people's honesty, people's transparency, people's efficiency should be ensured. The people should be corruption free. We should not be socially excluded in any way. We should not involve ourselves in any kind of discrimination. Once the people's awareness will increase, then definitely the government will be bound to correct their policy. So, rule of law, the people have to follow the rule. People should not violate the rule, abide by the rule. Only people can change the country. It is not the government. We have seen 75 years. Hardly means in this respect, as far as governance is concerned, hardly there is any progress in last 75 years. It is the people to take the lead role. We have to change the government, which is very corrupt. It is our interest. We have to change the society. We have to come forward. Otherwise, nothing will happen. System will remain same for next 100 years. But if people's opinion, people's education, people's means participation is changed, people's involvement is changed, then definitely we can change the society. Good governance can be ensured. Now coming to the sustainability part, because sustainability, when we talk of sustainability, we should not exploit any kind of natural resources. Sustainability is meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So there are different kinds of sustainability, like social sustainability, like economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability. So in all the cases, sustainability only can be ensured through the collective effort of the government, by the people, by the society. We can ensure different kind of political sustainability, economic sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. For a robust country like India, we have to ensure, we have to adopt sustainable policies, sustainable practices are to be done. Government Governmental role is very important. Robust democracy we have to ensure, and just yeah. So stakeholders role here, stakeholder, we are the stakeholder of the society. We are the stakeholder of the government. So we have to contribute in in different way. We have to educate ourselves. We have to decentralize the power. We have to avoid bureaucratic mindset, corruption-free country. We have to ensure. We have to ensure nepotism, avoiding nepotism, exploitation. We have to work with diversity. We have to respect the culture, a strong traditional culture. We have to respect. We have to empower ourselves. We have to break the status quo. We have to trust on our judicial system. Then, to conclude, I can say that the still wherein cannot be ensured, and without good governance, sustainability cannot be ensured. And without sustainability, we cannot survive. So we have to disseminate good practices. We have to adopt public consultation process. We have to believe in democracy. We have to have a competitive democracy. We must have liberal pluralism. We must have effective public management. We must have moral obligation, and properly policy execution will help developing good governance and thereby ensuring sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for throwing or bringing into perspective the. Audible? Audible at the time? Thank you, sir, for giving us a perspective on how we can make our governance systems sustainable and the imperatives that would make this, rather, the imperatives that would make governance systems in our country more effective. This discourse on governance, our distinguished speakers, I'd like to thank them for sharing their valuable perspective on how we can make our governance systems more effective going forward. As is the mandate, we would like to, invite our audience to come up with their valuable questions so that, this discourse can become even more participative. So I'd like to, throw this session open for discussion. Any questions from the audience? Any questions? At the back? Okay. In that case, sir, I would like to request you if you have any questions or queries, you can also share among yourself. So this would be more of a an interactive session between our interactive distinguished speakers. Any questions?
I would like to ask you, the audience a few questions. What is your contribution? What contribution you have made ensuring good governance? What contribution you have made to ensure good governance? Are you blaming the government only, or sometimes you are blaming yourself? Have you ever blamed yourself? What is the participation? What is your participation? Yes, please.
Uh, Good evening, dignitaries sitting on the dais and my dear friends coming from different colleges and universities and students. I'm not coming up here to answer direct question put by sir. It's just I have one query or one question. It's not also a question, just a query. Say good, we are talking about a good governance and of course democracy in the liberal policy and politics. Are we really living in the age of democracy in pure sense, or whether good governance has achieved? So this is a very, what to say, uh, question that strike my mind, and I'm also presenting a paper. And I cannot say that we are living in the age of democracy in the true sense because people here and there, everyday people are demanding cries for liberties, cries for freedom, justice, and all. All so many cases are pending because we are already under one of the best system of judiciary also, but we are still crying for uh, justice. And now we are talking about expecting people to perform their best for the good governance, but the people are worrying about their livelihood only because this is a world of a materialistic world. We are not living in another philosophy, and the government is trying to implement the policies to maintain the philosophical, what to say, expression only, but we are not living under this philosophy. We are not, what to say, we following those principles, but it is material life that dominate us. So that's why we all people are maintaining their position, which is influenced by materialistic life. So under this situation, how can people come forward for the good governance and all? Because there are two types of people: one looking after their self-interest, and other for the betterment of the other people. That people are very less in number, and they are coming forward with civil society and all. That is very less in number. So my question is that. Not question, it's just an appeal that whether good governance has arrived or whether we are living in the democracy in true sense. That is a question open to all the panel speakers. Thank you, sir.
So may I answer? Sir, may I answer? Yeah, to large extent, we are missing that. To large extent, freedom of expression. If you compare with European context, if you compare with US, so we are lagging behind. But gradually we are progressing. Government is also performing, doing Chinese level best. People's awareness is also increasing. People are also coming forward. But last 75 years, the kind of improvement, the position we are supposed to have, we have not attained that position. We have seen the government function for last 75 years, right? Now people also will have to, the stakeholder, every stakeholder of this society will have to play its greater role. People should not be very silent. What I mean to say that. Okay, then only progress will come through the collective effort, the holistic effort from every corner, from all the stakeholders. Then only the progress and true democracy will be reflected. Okay? In a day or within a decade, it would not be possible, but people also will have to think of. Thank you.
Any of the speakers who would like to contribute to this particular aspect of discussion? Oh, one more question. Perhaps the last for the day, because after this we have one more session to go.
Good afternoon, speakers. So I have seen most of the speakers here are stressing democracy and good governance. Cannot there be good governance without democracy? This is my question.
So I talked about that a little bit. If you think of the role of the government as delivering certain services, a minimum number of services, then maybe it can happen without democracy. But the whole problem is that if you cede powers to the government without democracy, then there is no reason whatsoever for it to try and work towards the welfare of the people. Because, democracy is after all a minimal check on the behavior of the government. That, has the government gone rogue? Is the government doing something which is not consistent with the welfare of the people? And at least some of us try to emphasize that it's not just a question of the will of the people in an average sense, but also about some marginal communities. Okay, so I am old enough that in the 1950s, when Pakistan became a dictatorship, people would talk about what a great this is. The middle class would say that there's good law and order, no strikes, nothing in Pakistan. What a great place it is. But look at where Pakistan went. And I'm not talking about 50 years, I'm talking about, in a few years. So it just became self-serving. If there's no check on you, and democracy, voting in a democracy is the most minimal kind of check that is required for a government. I mean, that's not enough, because about the marginalized people is to say that that's not enough. But at least having some elections periodically put some pressure on the government. Not enough, but some. So therefore, I think democracy is an integral part of good governance, a very minimum requirement.
Our distinguished speakers, Professor Patterson, Professor Milan Kantidatto, Ms. Rakshida Swami. Quick announcement, like right after this session, we'll be starting our paper presentations on this particular theme, good governance. We have 13 papers. The chairperson for this session is Professor Nigamananda Vishwas. We'll have a small 5 minutes break before we start the next session. Thank you all.
Please do, please do. I mean, that's the reason also I would indicate that. However, we can definitely be happy to have, if you would like to see some of these things in other states, yeah, that's really why I'm just nice. Alright. Oh, your paper. So you have come from Kerala University just to participate. Very all keep in touch. There are there is zero impact to the world. So if there's a organized I don't ever have a Zoom call. Okay. Yours, Shelby. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
यहाँ पे आएंगे, आगे सिंगल जाएगा, इसके बाद एयरपोर्ट, एयरपोर्ट ठीक है, हाँ प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, मैनेज करेंगे।
আচ্ছা মানে গান আছেন তো এখানে মানে এখানেই আছে আচ্ছা
আমি তোমার সঙ্গে চলে যাবো, হ্যাঁ 1-1.5 ঘন্টা লাগবে। উনি স্যার অন্য গাড়িতে যাবে। না না আমি 1-1.5 ঘন্টা পরে যাবো, 1.5 ঘন্টা। ঠিক আছে আমি হেল্প করি। তুমি যেও না।
Very good evening to all present in this session. We'll start the paper presentation session on good governance. We have 13 papers lined up in this session. I will spell them out one by one. Can I know the audience, like who is present and who perhaps is perhaps not with us today? Uh, the first speaker or presenter is Mr. Manek Nazari. Is he around? Mr. Manek Nazari? No. Mr. Gautam Chandra Roy, if you can please, yes. So we have one. Mr. Monojit is with us, yes. Kirakao is with us, yes. Advocate Frederick Rooney from USA, no. There's also a speaker in one of our thematic areas, IPR, among others. The next, Professor Jyotiraj Pathak is with us, yes. Dr. D.D. Chaturmurthy, okay, madam. Joseph Remind, okay. Arjun KV is there, yes. Professor Panos Ionis from Greece, no. Abhijit Bhula and Dezani Taluga, Abhijit Ria and Dezani Taluga, no. Dr. Rupinder Pal Kaur, Dr. Rupinder Pal Kaur. Anybody Basavantari madam? No. Okay, so we have a fair idea like who is present in this session. Let me first introduce the chairperson for this session, Professor Niwan Vishen, from Aligarh Muslim University, was also there with us for the invited tech session today on good governance. Sir, I request you to take the chair and set the tone for the paper presentation session today. Sir, you are requested to. You are in that, paper. I got it. So I request the respective chairperson to spell out the terms and conditions for this paper presentation session. I will take this forward. Yes, presentation will be here.
Good evening, honored present over here. I request presenter to come over here one by one. First name I call. The presenter is Gautam Chandra Roy, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, BM College, Dhubri. Please come and give your presentation.
Good evening to you all. Respected Chairperson, it's already been late, so I'll be very brief. The title of my paper is Sixth Schedule of the Indian Constitution, Issues of Governance in the Autonomous Council of in Assam. Oh, I'm Gautam Chandra Roy. I teach political science at Indian College. Uh, so if we look at the concept of autonomous council, basically my paper is based on these arguments. So autonomous council is relatively a very small administrative unit within the existing political setup mandated to a ethnic group, which is at the grassroots level. So autonomous council is based on self-determination, and it basically aims at social, political, economic, as well as cultural improvement of the community, particularly the ethnic community. Since independence, we have seen, particularly in Northeast as well as in Assam, that the demand for autonomous council, particularly under the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution, has been increasing. However, if you look at the functioning of the autonomous council, many there are various the autonomous functioning of particular the functioning of the autonomous councils come under close scrutiny from various corners, primarily due to the mismanagement, lack of transparency as well as the issues of governance. In fact, in the name of self-determination, in the autonomous councils, a beneficiary class has emerged, lagging behind the larger sections of the society. Moreover, since Northeast India as well as Assam is a plural society, and the claim for autonomous council, led by one group, encourages other groups to, demand for the same. So in this context, basically, I would try to examine the idea of autonomy that emerged in Northeast India as well as Assam in particular, and the issues of governance in the backdrop of the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution. Next slide, please. If you look at the idea of autonomy, so autonomous council, as I have mentioned in the beginning, is relatively a small administrative unit within the existing political setup, and it's mandated to the ethnic group at the grassroots level. The autonomous council is based on the principle of, and I quote, minority and indigenous right and right to self-determination for a community or a region to bestow its substantial administrative, fiscal policy and other powers, unquote. If you look at the creation of autonomous council in Assam, the formation of autonomous council has a long history, and it started since independence. The autonomous council, the debate was there in the Constituent Assembly, and finally, after a meticulous debate, it was passed in 1949. And the debate basically was led by Gopinath Bordoloi. There was one subcommittee, and the subcommittee was known as Northeast Frontier Assam Tribal and Excluded Areas. So under the leadership of the then Chief Minister of Post-Colonial Assam, Gopinath Bordoloi, the provision of sixth schedule under the provision of Indian Constitution started. So basically, again, the Autonomous Council, one of the objective of Autonomous Council was to, and I quote, integrate the tribal groups within the Indian political system without undue external pressure on well-functioning of social system, unquote. So as I have mentioned, the Autonomous Council, next slide. As I have mentioned, that Autonomous Council has a long history in India, particularly in Northeast as well as in Assam. So the first Autonomous Council was created at Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council way back in 1951, just after independence. Then the North Kasar and presently the Dima Hasao Autonomous Council was constructed in the year 1952. As I had mentioned earlier, in the beginning that the demand for the Autonomous Council again increased, and if I may say so, Autonomous Council, the demand for six is like a hot kettle in Northeast India, and every year, various ethnic groups they demand Autonomous Council under the sixth schedule. So in that way, in 2003, Borderland Territorial Council was created. Earlier, the autonomous provision of Autonomous Council under sixth schedule was mandated to the tribal, hill tribal groups, but for the first time in 2003, the provision was created for the plain tribal as well. So along with that, in 1995, 6 statutory autonomous council was created, and which were not, of course, under the sixth schedule. So to include, in 1995, Tiwa, Missing and Rama Autonomous Council was created, followed by the Thengal Kasari, Shanwal Kasari and Delhi Autonomous Council in 2003 respectively. Along with that, in 2020, 2 years back, three more additional autonomous councils was created under the State Statutory Act to include the Morang, Motok, and Koch Rajbangshi community. So altogether, we have three autonomous councils in Assam under 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution and 9 autonomous councils which are not included in the autonomous in the 6th schedule provision of Indian Constitution. And interestingly,
Issues.
yeah, sure, sir.
Please directly come to your main issues.
Yeah, right. Yes, sir. So within 2 minutes, sir. So interestingly, all have been demanding the protection of the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution. So when we talk about the question of autonomy as well as governance, we all know that, and since the previous speaker has talked about issues as governance, so governance is the key of autonomous council. However, the main question is that accommodating all the sections of the society. So this is the root, basic thrust of autonomous council. How can the autonomous council be more inclusive? Or in the process of autonomy, has the autonomous council become exclusively space of power politics for the elites or political leaders? Has it created a privileged question? So these are some of the questions that I intend to do in the coming session, in the coming slides. So moreover, if you look at the functioning of the existing autonomous council, there are various allegations, as the previous speakers or indicted speakers also mentioned. Mismanagement, nepotism, corruption has been there. In fact, there is an inevitable conflict between autonomy and overdependence on the center, particularly on finance, on the matters of finance. So that is why what we have seen is that instead of tackling the real issues of isolation and socio-economic development, focus on attention shifting towards the accommodation of competing ethnic claims. So in that way, we have seen there are various paradoxes of autonomy in Assam as well as in the Northeast as a whole. So if you look at the various studies that have been conducted particularly in Assam, there are studies in Karbi Anglong as well as Dima Hasao district of autonomous council. The studies suggest that in this particularly in these two districts, inequality in terms of income, access to education, healthcare facility, etc., increased significantly, leaving the weaker section of the society. So in most of the cases, due to widespread corruption, concentration of power at the hands of few, basically the unholy nexus between the tribal elites, political leaders, contractors, bureaucrats, and development schemes that are not percolated down to the grassroots level. So in that way, I want to quote two experts on this field. So sixth schedule has become an alibi for social free, serving the few at the cost of the majority. Again, if I quote, sixth schedule has compromised the traditional institution, unquote. So continuing there are various paradoxes.
Please wind up.
Yes, sir. Since the time is very late, I want to would like to wind up, give my concluding remarks. So in conclusion, what I want to say is that in post-colonial Assam, successive governments have tried to establish, autonomous council, considering the competing ethnic claims. But in the process, if we do not consider the governance, as the previous speakers also said, the main issue is the governance, and perhaps the inclusive governance is the key for the success of autonomous council. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Please give him a big hand. Please motivate him, please. Please, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have any question? Audience, please. Any question? What is your suggestion in this regard?
My suggestion is that inclusive governance. Without people's participation, without the participation of the civil society organization, autonomous council, maybe it's a very good idea, particularly for the tribal groups of Northeast India, as well as some, since autonomous councils have been created in order to protect the land rights, cultural, linguistic identity. But the thing is that a larger elite section has been immersed, and they are, dominating. They are controlling the power. So that is why inclusive governance is the key for the success of autonomous council. This is my take up.
Thank you. Thank you. So next presenter is Dr. Y. Manojit Sinha, Royal Global University Guwahati. The topic of presentation is rethinking global good governance and decentralization, issues and challenges. Please summarize your presentation. Very precisely give your presentation.
Yes. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, sir. Respected chairperson of the technical session and my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. As sir has told, my topic is rethinking good governance and decentralization, issues and challenges. In a very summarized way, I just want to give this idea of good governance and decentralization. Here, I just want to take a problematic of the good governance and decentralization philosophically. Here, we are now living in a democratic society which is established under the philosophy of the great liberalism. And good governance is also one part of this great liberalism and decentralization. Here we are living in this decade, that is, good days are coming with this good governance system which was popularized since 1990s, and mostly in India we are facing such type of good governance since 1990s only, with the introduction of Panchayat Raj government and all. Here my question is, with the introduction of many government interventionist policy that is coming in the form of the welfare state, so many implementations were made by the government, whether it could reach to the people. So as good governance was a mechanism through which resources was transferred to the people, and decentralization also one of the mechanism to make people participation positively. But here my question, whether people are satisfied, are they able to get their aspirations? What are people's aspirations? Whether government can fulfill the people's aspiration? I think no. Most of us know that this is government is lagging behind. So why government is not able to do? Is it our responsibility to perform how to get our aspirations by involving the system? It is our civil society's responsibility to make people happy, or it is a responsibility of the government, or that is state. So here comes my findings that such kind of ideas, philosophy, that is the good governance is also a kind of philosophy that was introduced since 1990s and 2000, very much popularized, and the administration, that is a decentralized system of administration, decentralized system of governance system. Right? We are a number of, levels where decentralization was made in India. It is decentralized by the introduction of Panchayat Raj institutions and all. So all these developments were the product of the liberalism. What is this liberalism? We all know liberalism produced many things. In India, liberalism also produced the class differentiation. We know capitalism is the product of liberalism, and it is attacked by Marxism. And communist country came to world with the contradiction of this capitalism. So capitalism gave birth to class differentiation. Rich people, poor people, capital, bourgeois, petty bourgeois. And in India also,
Today, we are living in the stage of the, decentralized and globalized society where privatization is also ruling. And government is also not able to perform according to the people's aspirations. Government is run under the, monetary flow of this around the country, across the country. People not able to take independent decisions. So here my finding is after independence, all the British legacy of the colonial rule, so they left the class differentiation. They could create the bourgeois and petty bourgeois and the artisans, that is the proletariat. And this proletariat are the only, finding their livelihood only. And the bourgeois people and petty bourgeois, they are trying to control the administration system and the ruling class in the society. And that class people, they try to sustain, the policy. That is the domination of the ruling class over the people. And here, it is not possible to make the people's aspirations because of the society is ruled by money. Here, lots of black money are used during the time of election, and because of this flow of money, people are not able to get what people's aspirations we made, and the democracy that was formed through the system of contractualists, according to the, the contractualist people like Rousseau and Locke that we all know. So people give consent to the ruler, and in return, ruler has to take the interest of the people, and that is not, practicable in the society where money is ruling, and government is not performing their duty on the basis of the contract that really look after the people's interest. It is the monetary flow, and it is the capital that influence the government to take any kind of decision. So my appeal and my suggestion and how to improve the system of this good governance and decentralization, it is through the system of the philosophical change, and the philosophical class has to move. It is not that revolutionary should take place according to Marxism, that the proletariat should revolt against the, rich, and it is the philosophical class that have to start revolt against the system that is not ruled according to the wish of the people, but to protect the interests of the rich people of the society, that is the capitalist society. And the role of money should be minimized in our democratic society. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a very nice presentation. Any question from the audience, please?
Yes, please.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just quickly, can you just briefly tell us? You said that there is a correlation between liberalization and decentralization in India. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you just briefly tell what are you meaning by that? And secondly, can you just tell us your methodology of research through which you are making the statements? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Liberalization, as we know, liberalization was developed with the idea of awakening, right? Renaissance, after Renaissance, that Enlightenment movement came, and the idea of this individualism that was developed in the form of liberalism. During that time, many political philosophers like Locke, Rousseau, mostly the contractualists, they were talking about the individual freedom. During the time, Kant, that is the idealist, he also talked about the the moral autonomy, and the will of the people should be protected. How will of the people should be protected? That was also developed under the philosophy of liberalism. So liberalism gave birth to this individualism, and ultimately individualism, that is the freedom of individual, without state interference, that gave birth to capitalism. That is individualism, capitalism, all these are interrelated. Here, decentralization, how decentralization is to be implemented and how it comes to this decentralization. See, democracy is a kind of government that is the modern system of democracy, that is representative democracy. It is very, difficult or almost impossible in this modern world of this vast population, right? It was practiced during the time of the early Greek period only. So, in this decentralization, or sorry, in this democracy, that is representative form of government, how to protect the individual interest? Then, according to the contractualists, every individual's will should be protected. That was also we consider as general will of the people. So, every will of the people, how to protect it? It is only through the decentralized policy only. But that idea of decentralization, no, it was not implemented during the earliest time, because in democracy, people's participation is required. But large-scale people's representative policy cannot become the people's participation positive, right? So that's why participation, people's participation through decentralized is important. And under my methodology, the idea was developed only on the basis of these secondary sources and few observations was made. Few observations were made from the local areas and rural areas during the time of election, also how money works in our democratic society.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. Thank you for your nice presentation and interaction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next topic of presentation would be nexus between income inequality and governance. And the presentation will be made by Mr. I. Raja Basumatari. Please, Basumatari, please give your presentation and be very precise and try to finish your presentation within the time.
Good evening to all, professor and all the teachers and scholar friends and student friends. So today I am Dr. Raja Basundari, research scholar in the Department of Economics, Portland University, and I am going to present on the topic nexus between income inequality and governance. Income inequality refers to the degree to which income is distributed equally among population. And governance means the worldwide defined governance as the manner in which the power is exercised in the management of country's economic and social resources for development. In worldwide governance indicators, there are 6 indicators of governance that identify the quality of governance: control of corruption, rule of law, political stability, and absence of corruption, voice and accountability, government effectiveness, and regulatory quality. Control of corruption, the degree to which public power is utilized for private gain, and rules of law. It about a healthy legal system, including property rights and ability to enforcement. Political stability and absence of violence, misuse of government, resistance to political violence and terrorism. And voice and accountability, it refers to the degree to which countries' citizens can participate in political decision making. Government effectiveness assists to government's capacity to carry out effective policies and uphold its credibility. And regulatory quality measures the government's capacity to design and carry out good policies and regulations that allow for and encourage the growth of the public sector. And these 6 indicators or qualities decide the quality of governance, that how governments are chosen, evaluated, and replaced, as well as how well they are able to create and carry out effective public policies and gain the trust of both citizens and the state in their governing bodies. If the service is efficient to the public, legal system is trustworthy, and an administrative system is accountable to its citizens, then the governance is good. Otherwise, the governance is weak. If government failing to carry out their responsibilities, leading to failure in economic, political, and civic institutions. And here, the objective is to investigate the nexus between income inequality and governance among different income group countries. Next year. Next year. Okay. Here, the countries are classified according to the World Bank Atlas method. These are low income group countries, lower middle income group countries, and upper middle income group countries, and high income group countries. From low income group countries, out of this I have selected 12 income inequality countries. From lower middle income countries, here out of 47 I have selected 24 income inequality countries. From upper middle income group countries, out of 44 I have selected 24 income inequality countries, and from high income countries, out of 54, 30 income.
Please come to findings and conclusion.
This is the trend of average Gini coefficient. Next. This is the average Gini coefficient for the central countries during the period of 1996 to 2019. As we can see from the trends that the low income country has the highest Gini coefficient. That means income inequality is the highest in the low income country as compared to 3 other group of countries. Next slide. And this is the average governance score for sample countries during the period of 1996 to 2019. And we can see from this figure that the governance system is strong enough in high income countries. That means here,
come to the conclusion.
So here I have made the empirical analysis. Slide number 56. Here I am using FGS, Feasible Generalized Least Square method, and Penal Corrected Standard Errors method. And from the result, we can see that there is a positive nexus between income inequality and governance in low income, lower middle income, and high income country, and negative nexus between income inequality and governance in high income country. Sorry, it should be the upper middle. There is a positive nexus between income inequality and governance in low income, lower middle income, and upper middle income countries, and negative nexus between income inequality and governance in high income countries. That means, as you can see from the previous slide, that the governance system is strong enough in the high income countries. That means with the improvement in the governance system in high income country, that income inequality reduces. But as the governance system is weak in low income, lower middle income, and in upper middle income country, that means with the increase in this weak governance system, there is an increase in the income inequality in this group of countries. So in conclusion, we know that a very uneven distribution of income is obstacle to economic development. For economic development, uneven distribution of income should be reduced. Since high-income countries are highly developed countries and governance environment is strong enough in these countries, so low-income, lower middle income, and upper middle income countries should improve their governance qualities to reduce income inequality, so that development of economies can take place.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bosmatari, for your nice presentation. And audience, please, anyone of you have any question, please, you can ask. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bosmatari.
Thank you.
Next presentation is by Jyotiraj Pathak on good governance and COVID-19, the Indian experience. Jyotiraj Pathak is there, present over here or not? Next presentation by Dr. D.D. Chaturvedi on achieving sustainability through good governance, an empirical study in the light of inclusive growth with special reference to Boroland. Yeah, please, within 5 minutes, try to complete your presentation.
This presentation has been prepared by myself, Associate Professor at Delhi University, Professor Harpreet Singh, same from Delhi University, and this is Neelam Chaturvedi. Let us first understand the topic of this presentation. As far as governance is concerned, it means how we are managing the affairs, how the things are done. And when these things are done efficiently, in good manner, improvement in the quality of citizens of the country. On the other hand, sustainability means when we are meeting the aspirations of the future generations without any adverse impact on the current generation. In this study, we are studying the relationship between these two important variables, that is good governance and sustainability. There have been numerous studies on this topic, but my topic is very much specific in the context of inclusive growth. And that too, pertaining to Assam and borderland territorial area. Inclusive growth means when the progress benefits percolates to each and every segment of the population. That means when we are covering everybody, benefits are going to every person in the society. Next.
Please come to your methodology, objectives, findings, and conclusion.
Through inclusive growth, we are able to have good effects on reduction of poverty, education, health, and well-being of the people of the country. As far as objectives of the study is concerned, we are exploring the factors that determine the sustainability and the impact of good governance on sustainability. And for this purpose, we have adopted random sampling method by selecting 208 experts from different sectors in the designated area, that is Borderland, Assam, and here we have used factor analysis and multiple regression analysis, where we are studying the relationship between the two variables. Next.
Please come to your findings and conclusion directly.
We have developed these 4 factors which are before you. These include effectiveness and efficiency with associated variables, which because of paucity of time I am not able to tell. Then second is long-term commitment. Third one is strategic objectives. And fourth one is policy integration mechanism. The corresponding associated variables have been there. You could have seen in the slides, and the results or findings are before you. The impact of these 4 variables are, it is 0.689 for long for policy integration mechanism. Conclusion, there is a significant relationship. We want progress and inclusive future for the citizens of Assam and Bodoland, and transparency, accountability in the economy. Sensitive areas, but still I am. Yes, 208 respondents.
Who are the respondents?
Our demographic profile will include, mostly have included postgraduates and qualified students, including some policymakers, some environmentalists, and some people related with the international affairs. Because it is difficult to include all experts. So we have included semi-skilled or semi-professional students as well as experts from the respective fields, which are required to judge environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and overall sustainability in the economy.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi, for your nice presentation.
Any other question? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next presenter is Joseph Riami on the topic the quest for inclusive policies and self-governance tribes in Northeast India. Yeah, 5 minutes, please. Within 5 minutes, you wind up your presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph. I teach in Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Guwahati campus. So, due to the paucity of time, I'm going to present only the zest of my paper. So, the Constituent Assembly discussed tribal policy as part of their effort to negotiate the institution from political struggle to social reconstruction. Self-rule was a principle which inspired a struggle and for negotiating these transitions. And I have to skip most of my paper. So if you look at the asymmetry framework, like autonomous district councils, it works for the tribal dominant states such as Meghalaya and Mizoram to some extent. It does not work for the tribal minority groups in Assam, Tripura, and Manipur, though some of these states enjoy a greater degree of asymmetry mechanisms. Like the sixth schedule, it cannot be totally based on the degree of asymmetry. The Bodo Territorial Autonomous District Council, now the Bodo Territorial Region, is a good case where they enjoy greater power compared to another asymmetry framework in the region. This model reduced the dependency of the Bodoland Territorial Council constituted under the sixth schedule on the state government for funds, provides space for expanding the territory, and empowers the BTC in the essence of self-governance. The pertinent question here is, can the BTR be a model for other tribal demands for self-governance? Is the framework for BTR ensure autonomy and self-rule for the Bodo, which can be replicated to other tribal demands for autonomy? There is no straight answer here, and it is too early to come to any conclusion at the present stage. However, the quantum of development and people engagement in the government indicates a positive appreciations of the model by the community. The more critical questions will be on the essence of self-governance, as the crux of this model will embark on the notions of right over land, resources, and identity. To see the light of this accord, the government should ensure practical self-governance and autonomy in its true sense without the monopoly of the dominant politics in the case of the first and the second accords. Otherwise, the claim of a final and comprehensive solutions will be another political gimmick. Another case is the Tripura Tribal Autonomous District Council in Tripura. The tribal claims that the framework did not ensure autonomy and self-governance and is controlled and politicized by the dominant government. So if you look at Tripura, there is a case of land alienation, displacement, electoral, political process, and have privileged the non-tribal majority populations. So in the case of Manipur, it's theorized that, it is well pointed out that given a sweeping effect, there will be a social group, we will encounter more bar-off and mobilization of ethnic minorities in the foreseeable future. So the territorially concentrated ethno-minority groups in the present state of Manipur have threatened and challenged the unity and integrity of the states. To conclude, the unrest and movement for autonomy and self-government in the northeastern region by the indigenous tribal groups is a claim for their right over land, resources, culture, language, and identity. The experiences of self-governance framework so far has been a drastic failure, where the domination politics have the patronal power notwithstanding constitutionally sanctioned power. The idea of integration framework as idealized by the policy framers has turned out to be privileged integrations framework that privilege the dominant politics and elites in the name of self-governance for the tribal people. The notion of negotiated integrated framework as discussed by some of the writer was not subsumed in the frame of self-governance as the intervention approach was deliberately focused more toward development and welfare rather than political solutions. Though the concept of self-governance and autonomy for the indigenous tribe has been well conceptualized in the said framework, the reality shows that the framework is enmeshed and engrossed in the politics of the dominant rule government and more so in the case of non-tribal dominant state. This needs to be resolved by revisiting the framework and relook at the structure and provision that have impeded the framework sanction for self-governance of the tribal people. The tribal demand for self-governance go beyond the present state-centric frame of six schedule as tribe experience lackadaisical approach in granting protections and not drive the notions of self-governance for the tribe. However, it should be entrenched in the frame of self-rule and autonomy rooted within the frame of asymmetrical federalism in its true sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Iriamai. Any question by audience?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next presentation by Arjun Kevhi. You have only 5 minutes time. Within 5 minutes, you have to complete your presentation. Please.
Respected Chair and faculties, my dear friends, good evening one and all. Today I am here to present the statecraft in Rekomsha. Myself Arjun, I am from University of Kerala. Rekomsha is a Sanskrit poem by the celebrated poet Great Kalidasa. It means the dynasty of Reku, the Sun dynasty. The text is primarily concerned with the bravery and the power of the great earlier Reku under the Sun dynasty. It is the narrative of some of the greatest statesmen to be born in India. Rekomsha talks about the good governance, people, and more about power. What are the supreme authority in a good governance system? Kalidasa, the Sanskrit poet and dramatist, is probably the greatest Indian writer of any time. Scholars have discovered that he was the teacher of the Sun dynasty. An opinion accepted by many, but not to all, scholars is that Kalidasa should be the associated with Chandragupta II. Historians say that the Rekomsha is the perfect reflection of the Gupta dynasty, the Chandragupta II or any other Gupta dynasty. The text is divided into 19 chapters. In Sanskrit, it is known as kanthas, 19 kantos. Through the 19 chapters, it describes the stories related to the Reku dynasty, namely the family of Dilipa and its successors, those Agnivarna, the last king. Agnivarna is the last king. It is believed that the literary figure of Reku could have been inspired by the Chandragupta Maurya. In the story, Kalidasa mentions 28 other kings under the Sun dynasty. It depicts the old traditional culture of our country or our culture. So here the welfare state concept in the Rekomsha. The welfare concept in Rekomsha, the social institution plays a vital role in the protecting and promoting citizens' economic and social well-being. So here is a poem or a verse in the Rekomsha. Purishansha jivino niratanga niditaya. It reflects the life or age group in those they are living that must live to the full extent of man's life or that they are free from fears and social calamities are owing to the influence of your act of austerity and learning. The states are responsible for the equality of life and social democratic principles. So it is also mentioning about the strength of an administrative system. In good governance, the state's strength or administrative strength, it is very important. The idea that the proper use of water consists in its application to the removal of the fears of the distrust has been stressed in the poem. Here the poet compares King Reku with the other kings or other dynasty. So he must be a administrative or he has more administrative power. So there is also a taxation system in the earlier period. In a state system, taxation cannot be avoidable because there is an economic source. The poet reflects King Adiliba received taxes solely for the welfare of his subjects. Generally, the tax rate was 1/6 produce of the land. It was given to the king in return of his act of protection. There's also such shlokas in Sanskrit. Also, an armed force system like Air Force, other forces, those are known as the Vayu Sena. The poet describes the need of an armed force. The armed services constitute the elements of a country's combined military services. Role of a society. Society plays a key role in the process of a governing system. The members are present their wants and demand to the government and to press for the adoption to their needs. The state use different agencies in society to implement programs. Diplomacy and war. In a governing body, diplomacy and war is a very important area. Kaldasa mentions the diplomacy and establishing.
Please wind up, please. Conclude. Please conclude.
Also, the poet mentioning about judiciary and other concept. Through his work, Kalidasa mentions the king qualities and how he uses his power and how become a good governor. A king should be impartial and highly judicial. The king must know about the subject, about his administrative system. The king is the ruler, so the king acts like a judge. Here, the judgment must be impartial. The poet or the poem Raghuram is highly structured in Sanskrit poem. The poet also ensures that the political concepts or other political ideas never decrease the beauty of the poem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question from the audience? Thank you. Thank you. Now, may I invite Rupinder Kaur and the team. Rupinder Kaur, yeah, you're there.
Yes, good evening everyone. I am Dr. Rupinder Kaur from Shri Guru Gobind Singh College, Chandigarh. And the topic of my paper is automated the testing of the quality of websites relevant in Punjabi and Hindi language of government domain in case study. Basically, next please. Basically, the websites they are being developed in regional languages also, in addition to English, but they are not being used by the users. That is the problem, and I have done the research study on that. It's why the people are not using. What is the basically gap, and what were the problems in those websites. And for that, I have selected 5 testing tools, and they basically I have considered the websites of government domain which are developed in a central government domain which are developed in Hindi and all the websites of Punjabi domain. Because I since I am from Punjab. Okay. So there are 72 websites of government domain which are developed in Hindi and Punjabi language in addition to English language. And only apex bodies, ministries and their departments at the regional level from government websites, they are being included for the study. And out of the 106 websites of Punjab state government, they have been considered of apex bodies, departments, boards, undertakings, and other departments. Next, please. So now 6 websites did not use Unicode encoding, means we have to download the fonts before using their websites. And 17 websites Punjab government, they are developed in Punjabi, and the 5 websites did not use Unicode encoding. So sample of consisting of 22 websites have been selected by using stratified sampling. And this sample consists of the domains like .goc, NIC, and includes both Punjabi and Hindi websites for the case study. Next, please. Next, please. And some metrics have been first. Some metrics have been considered. Next, please. Yes, these are the 9 attributes that have been proposed. Accessibility errors, accessibility alert, performance creep, load time, page size, response time, encoding use, and the validation output and the brokenness. And for testing of these 9 attributes, these 5 software testing, freelance software testing tools have been selected. And first, this is how the attributes have been defined: attribute name, characteristics, definition, proposed validity step, measurement, scale, scale type, and reference. And these characteristics basically they have been followed by the ISO 2.010. Next, please. Next, this is accessibility errors. Basically, the errors that hinder the accessibility of the websites for
Please come to the conclusion and your remark. It's your remark and conclusion.
Okay, next, please. Next, come to the results. Yes, next. These are the testing tools I have considered. Ping-down tool, then this link for the checking the local links, and web accessibility solution tool, whether that particular website it is accessible to all type of users. Next, ping-down tool for loading for testing the loading time. Website pulse tool to check the server status and download the HTML code containing details and markup validation whether it is valid or not up to the quality according to W3C. Next, please. Next. These are the screenshots for testing. Next. Come to the results only. Results. These are the total websites and the list of the Punjabi. And Bhasha Vibhag, that is only in Punjabi, only not in English. Now, these are the testing. So, conclusion is that you can see that from the results, only that so many websites they are not valid according to the software testing freelance tools. So that is the problem here. These websites, although so much money and efforts is being spent to develop the websites in particular languages, but still they are not being used. So we need to do some reason because quality. As a user, if I go on to the regional language, sometimes what happens, the broken link is there, and sometimes what happens again, the form which we have to fill, which I am looking for, it is again in the English language. So basically, those users who are not comfortable with the English language, they again have to switch to the English language. So that was my.
Thank you. Any question? If you have any question, please, audience. No, thank you, madam. Thank you for your nice presentation. And